Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're making this bottle-shaped box. The box overall is 3 inches across at its widest point, and it's about 8.5 inches tall. You can make this without any dies, although I will give you the sizing if you do have hexagon dies, which you can use on the bottom, and I'll give you an alternative cardstock size for that. But the rest of the piece is made without any dies, it's just scoring and cutting. I have used a circle punch to create the lid, but you may have something else in your stash which you can use if you like the effect that I've created. So without further ado, let's put the project together. We'll start with the top portion of the bottle, and if you want to make yours the same size as mine, you'll need a piece which is 9.5 by 5, and along the 5-inch side, score at half, 1.5 and 4.5. Rotate, and along the long side, score at half, 2, 3.5, 5, 6.5 and 8. We're then going to score down to the first score line only at 1, 1.5, 2.5, 3, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 6, 7, 7.5, 8.5 and 9. Then take your ruler and line your ruler up with the 3.5 inch score line, and we're going to mark on the score line lightly with a pencil at 3/4, 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 6 1/4, 6 3/4, 7 3/4, 8 1/4 and 9 1/4. And we're now going to put in our extra score lines. You'll need your ruler and a stylus, and we're going to form this so that the glue tab is going to be on the left hand side of each section, and the cut lines are going to be on the right hand side of each section. We're going to score from the end of the vertical that comes down within each of the 1/2 inch sections down to the pencil mark which we've made on the 3.5 inch score line. And we're going to do that all the way along. So if we look at these 2 sections in isolation, ignore the other sections because I've inadvertently scored in the wrong place, but you can see we're scoring from the end of the score line within the 1/2 inch tab down to the pencil line. We're then going to score again on the left hand side from the pencil line down to the bottom left hand corner of the next section. So within the left hand section of each of the 6 sections, we've got a score line which comes down from the bottom down to the pencil mark, and then that extends within the second lower section here. So we're now going to fold and burnish. Rotate it so that you've got your 2 smaller sections at the top and your 1/2 inch tab in front of you, and we're now going to do our cutting. Now you may decide you want to cut with your scissors or with a ruler and craft knife, that's entirely up to you. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to cut down each of the verticals through the first horizontal, through the second horizontal, up to the third horizontal. So we're going to start by separating each of the 6 sections. And again, in the last 1/2 inch tab, we're going to cut down to the same score line. So that's how our piece is going to look. It doesn't matter what order you do your cutting. You might want to cut all of your top tabs, then your next sections, or concentrate on one section at a time. But I'm going to show you what one section should look like, and then you can do that, work your way through the piece of card. So to the left hand side of each section, we're going to cut down the top ½ inch like so, and then we're going to cut from the end of that cut line down to the pencil mark. So we're going to cut from there to the pencil line on the score line like so, and then we're going to continue that cut down to the end of that top score line. So that's how that piece looks. We then want to rotate the piece, and we're going to cut up the first left hand score line to this ½ inch score line like so, and then we're going to cut up next score line along up to the score line. So you can see how we're creating the glue tabs, which is going to adhere the piece together, and this section at the bottom is going to remain as one long strip. So we want to create that look within all of the sections, so decide what order you want to do your cutting in. You might want to go along and cut all of the right hand sides and then go in and cut the left hand sides, or you might want to work on one strip at a time. There's no right or wrong way. So once your piece is cut, it will look something like this. You can start by just taking a wedge from the end tab here. Then we want to fold and burnish along the top ½ inch section and shape that tab like so. Then we will fold and burnish the diagonals on this side. Do the same with the bottom section. Angle this glue tab slightly, and the same at the bottom. So this is the first section cut and shaped. So you want to do that all the way along the 6 sections. So after all your folding and burnishing and cutting, you'll have a piece which looks something like this, and we're now going to glue that together to create the shape. Now the first thing you may want to do is you might want to just snip maybe 1/8 of an inch off of these glue tabs at the top, just because depending how you've actually burnished, you might find that your tab runs slightly over the edge of the corresponding piece next to it inside. So I'm just going to cut about 1/8 of an inch off of those. So we're going to start to glue these together. You might want to glue all of the bottom section together and then work your way on the next section, but I'm going to glue one whole side onto the piece next to it. So we'll start by adding some glue onto the second set of tabs. I'm going to add my glue to all of the sections, pull this around, move up to the next section, and then move up to the next section. So you can see how that's coming together like so. So we'll do that on all of the sides. When you get to the end, the last glue tab to join the piece together, you're going to add glue to all 4 glue tabs. I'm going to get the bottom into place to start with, and then I can get my hand inside to secure the other tabs like so. So that's the top half of the bottle, and we're now going to make the bottom portion. We need to make the base slightly smaller on the side so that the lid can come down over the top. So we are going to work in 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to do this the easiest way, although it's slightly unconventional, as it were. In terms of the height of the box, I'm going to make the base 4 inches high, which is going to make the overall piece about 8.5 inches, because obviously we're going to have 1/2 inch of the base which is going to run up to this section here where the lid starts to slope in. I'm also making the base so that the bottom of the box is strips of cardstock which come together to form the hexagon. If you have a hexagon die and you've got one which is going to fit the size of the base, you can reduce the length of the cardstock to 4.5 inches rather than the 6.5 inches that I have here. So for the bottom half of the bottle, we're going to work with a piece which is 6.5 inches, and it's 1/16 of an inch under 9.25 inches. You can see here we just need that little bit of room so that the bottom half will fit in. If I show you the bottom half that I've made earlier, the lid is not going to fit down over the top, and this is how the bottom is going to come together. So we're going to start by scoring along the long side at 1/2 inch to create our glue tab. Rotate the piece of cardstock so that the 1/2 inch tab is now on the right hand side. Place a pencil mark at the 1/16 of an inch notch, so the downward notch which is to the left hand side of the 1.5 inch track. So our score lines are going to all be 1/16 of an inch under 1.5 inches. I'm going to move that pencil mark along until it's in line with a full track. So I've moved it along so it's in line with the 1.5 inch track, and I'm going to score. So that's our first score line. I'm going to leave that where it is, and I'm going to make a pencil mark on the downward notch to the left of 3 inches, like so. Move the cardstock along so the pencil line is now in line with the 3 inch track, and score. Leave the piece where it is. You'll find that your cardstock on the left is now in line with the 1/8 of an inch track. I'm going to make a pencil mark on the downward notch to the left of 4.5 inches. Move the cardstock along so my pencil mark's in line with the 4.5 inch track, and score. Leave the piece where it is. Make a pencil mark on the downward notch to the left of 6 inches. Move the cardstock along, pencil lines in line with the track, and score. And then I'm going to make a pencil mark to the left of the 7.5 inch track. Move that along and score at 7.5 inches. Rotate the piece, and on the short side, so all my pencil marks are on the right hand side, and I'm going to score from top to bottom at 4 inches. So we can now fold and burnish. I've got my 1/2 inch tab over on the left, and you will either have 2.5 strip below the score line or a 1/2 inch segment below the score line. So we're going to cut up each of the verticals to the horizontal all the way along. Rotate to the 1/2 inch tabs in front of you. We're going to remove this right hand thin section like so, and then take a wedge from the end of the glue tab. I'm going to fold over the end section, so we're now going to join up and create our base section. I'm going to fold this over and join this piece together. And now you will either have a 1/2 inch tab here which you'll fold in and then add your hexagon onto. Alternatively, I'm going to move these strips back out of the way, and I'm going to secure one strip on top of another like so. So add it to its opposite strip. So let's add glue onto here. So this first one is going to come over like so. Could, of course, if you have the means, if you don't have a hexagon die but you have circle dies, you could stick a circle onto the base and then go around and trim if you needed to. So let's go in from the top and just burnish that down. So that's the base of our box, and then our lid sits down neatly over the top like so. So the last thing we want to do is create the cap. For the lid or the bottle cap, this is purely decorative, not actually functional. I've cut myself using my circle punch a piece of silver cardstock, and I've covered the back in red liner tape. I've got a strip of silver cardstock. This is 3.5 inches long. I'm not sure yet whether this is the right length or not. It's 1/2 inch wide, and I've scored at 1/4 inch. I've then scored at every 1/8 inch all the way along to create this sort of fluted, ribbed look. So I've flipped the cardstock over and scored from the bottom so that the ridges are on the outside. And then I've cut down to the 1/4 inch score line to create the tabs, which I'm going to use to glue the piece onto this. So let's see whether my theory works or not. I'll start here and I'm just going to work my way round, lining the score line up with the edge of the circle. If this doesn't work, then I do have hexagon dies, but I wanted to try and create something where you wouldn't need to use a specific shape like a hexagon, because obviously I appreciate not everyone has those. I'll just put some red liner tape on the end here, and then that should fix behind. Once you see this, if you like the idea, I'm sure lots of you will come up with an easier or a better way of putting this together. So that's not too bad. And then I'm going to go in and push down to get this tape. So I'm going to use my tweezers and just really push that down into place. So that's my bottle top idea. Not perfect, but let's put it on the top of the box and see what it looks like. So that fits on there. That fits on there quite well. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to glue that into place. Just add some glue around the rim here. Put that into place, and then I can continue with adding any additional embellishments or toppers or decoration onto the outside of the bottle. Here's the finished bottle. You can see I've just added a simple band around the middle and a topper which I had in my stash, and another topper there, and the lid comes off easily like so. And overall, I'm really happy with how the bottle has come out. So there we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.